No music, no greeting, just this.
Epstein was possibly about to cooperate with the feds right before he died.
Now, Oprah is limited in the context of the files, but there is clear collusion between Oprah and Jeffrey Epstein.
That word, collusion, not association, not coincidence, collusion. And before you write that off as internet noise,
Sarah sent Epstein an email saying, I want to make sure you're aware I'm going on Oprah tomorrow, and she is going to ask me about my debts, the entrapment of last year, and the press about you in January. It'll be quick and at the top of the show, all of 10 seconds, a very small piece. However, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this and seek your advice on how you want me to answer.
Oprah's show, Epstein's script, one email that connects them both, and now two of the most outspoken voices in entertainment, people who already paid the price for telling the truth about Oprah, are stepping forward and pointing directly at the same name.
If we can't be friends, then at least let's be enemies.
50 Cent said that years ago. He had no idea how deep this rabbit hole was going to go, but he kept digging. And now, together with Monique, they may have just pulled the thread that unravels everything. Because here's what nobody is connecting. Oprah's pattern of silencing, controlling, and financially strangling black artists didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened inside the same elite power structure that kept Jeffrey Epstein untouchable for decades. This is the story of how it all connects. Let's start with what most people already know, or think they know. Oprah Winfrey, the most powerful woman in media history. Beloved, trusted, practically untouchable. For decades, her name has been synonymous with inspiration, generosity, and black excellence. If she endorsed you, your career launched. If she turned her back on you, you felt it. That last part, that's where this story actually begins. Because the same machine that made Oprah bulletproof also made her dangerous. And the people who learned that lesson the hardest are the same ones now standing up and refusing to be quiet. Monique has been screaming about this for years. She starred in Precious, a film produced by Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry. She gave a performance that won her an Academy Award, an Oscar, and for that entire film, she was paid $50,000.
I was paid $50,000 to do the movie Precious. And it really wasn't about the money, and I'm not complaining because I signed up to do it with my friend.
Yeah. But
so
you're saying that because you didn't have the money to do this on your own. Is that what you're saying? That you needed to feed your family and pay your bill?
I think that's what America says.
Yeah.
I think we all say, I can't do it for free.
Right.
So when the movie studio says we can't set a precedent and pay you to do this, we didn't have an issue with them.
Okay.
But that's when the reports came that now Monique is being demanding
$50,000 for an Oscar-winning performance. And when Monique refused to then tour the world promoting that same film for free, with no additional compensation, no acknowledgement, nothing, Oprah and Tyler Perry didn't just say no. They went to work dismantling her. They spread the narrative. She's difficult. She's a problem. She won't cooperate. And just like that, doors started closing. Jobs disappeared. The industry that had just crowned her its best actress turned its back overnight. And the person at the center of that campaign, the woman who produced the film, Oprah. Now here's what's interesting, because while Monique was going through all of this, a similar story was playing out on the other side of the industry. 50 Cent, one of the most commercially successful rappers of all time, tried to get on Oprah's show. Not to fight, not to cause drama. He wanted to use that platform to rebrand, to show a different side of himself, and his grandmother was a fan. Oprah said no. Not just no, a very deliberate, pointed no.
I think she caters to older white women. She was completely against everything that was in my music. So she ain't never going to have me on that show. I'm never going to reach that platform, which is confirmation of being a huge success. So I just said, okay, if we can't be friends, at least let's be enemy.
And 50 Cent is not the kind of person who forgets. He cataloged it, he watched, he waited. And when the moment came to speak up for Monique, when the entire industry went quiet, he was the one who showed up. But here's the thing, what both 50 Cent and Monique experienced isn't just about money or access or platform. It's about control, the kind of systematic, deliberate control that turns powerful people into obedient ones. And the question you have to ask yourself is, where did Oprah learn that that system, because that same system has another name, and that name is Jeffrey Epstein. To understand how Oprah connects to Epstein, you first have to understand how Epstein actually operated, because he wasn't just a predator, he was an architect. Epstein didn't stumble into elite circles. He was placed there. He built relationships through gatekeepers, people who could vouch for him, legitimize him, and keep him surrounded by names that made scrutiny feel almost absurd.
He was getting all of these very powerful and very respected people together.
Yeah.
And you would figure like, oh, it's
if that
safe.
guy's there, if that lady's
Clinton's
there.
here. This is fine.
Right.
Clinton's here. How could this be bad?
Yeah.
That was the genius of it. Surround yourself with enough credibility, and you become credible by proximity. Epstein understood something that very few people in power talk about openly. In elite circles, reputation is currency, and if you can buy enough of it, you can buy almost anything. Now, after his 2008 arrest, Epstein needed to rebuild that currency fast, so he pivoted. He began rebranding himself as a philanthropist. Money flowed into charities. Universities took his funding. Academic institutions opened their doors. He wasn't hiding. He was laundering his image, and he needed powerful, trusted names to do it. That's where the pattern with Oprah starts to get uncomfortable, because the Sarah Ferguson email didn't come out of nowhere. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, was personally connected to both Epstein and Oprah, and what that email reveals is something much more specific than just a mutual acquaintance. It reveals coordination.
Sarah sent Epstein an email saying, I want to make sure you aware I'm going on Oprah tomorrow, and she is going to ask me about my debts, the entrapment of last year, and the press about you in January. It'll be quick and at the top of the show, all of 10 seconds, a very small piece. However, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this and seek your advice on how you want me to answer.
Read that again. Sarah Ferguson is going on Oprah's show, and before she does, she's emailing Epstein, a convicted sex offender, to get his talking points, and Epstein responds. He writes out exactly what she should say, word for word. Jeffrey was unfairly characterized as a pedophile by the tabloid press. He paid his debt to society and has sought forgiveness. That's not a conversation between strangers. That's damage control. That's reputation management. That's two people working together to shape a public narrative. And Oprah's platform is the vehicle they chose to do it on. Now, is there documented proof that Oprah knew the email existed? No. Is there confirmed evidence she coordinated with Epstein directly? Not in writing, not yet. But here's what is documented. The interview happened. Sarah Ferguson went on Oprah's show, and the Epstein talking points, whatever version made it to air, aligned closely with what Epstein had scripted. And that's the most chilling part, because Oprah throughout her entire career has presented herself as a champion for victims. She built an empire on compassion, on truth-telling, on holding the powerful accountable. So the question isn't just what she knew. The question is, how does the most powerful interviewer in television history miss this? To really understand what's being alleged here, you have to look at the pattern, not one incident, not one friendship, the pattern. Because both of these things, Epstein's world and Oprah's world, operate on the same fundamental principle: control through leverage. Think about how Epstein maintained power over his network. He didn't just pay people, he created situations where people owed him, where people needed him, where people were afraid of what he knew. And once you were inside that circle, getting out was nearly impossible. Now look at what Monique described. She did the work, she delivered a performance that won Hollywood's highest honor. And instead of being rewarded, she was underpaid, then pressured to work for free, then publicly smeared when she refused.
They had a request. We simply had a request, and they said they couldn't do it, and we said we understood. That was it.
That's not a dispute over a contract. That's an example of how power operates when it wants to make an example of someone. You push back, you lose everything. You comply, you survive. And the people watching, other artists, other actors, they learn the lesson without a single word being spoken directly to them. Taraji P. Henson went through a version of the same thing with The Color Purple. Again, an Oprah production. Again, compensation so low, she almost walked away entirely.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost. I'm tired of hearing my sisters say the same thing over and over. You get tired. I hear people go, you work a lot. Well, have to. The math ain't mathing. I'm tired of hearing that my entire career, 20 plus years in the game.
20 years. And the math still doesn't math. For one of the most recognizable faces in television history. And now, look at what happened when Taraji spoke up. The exact same playbook got activated. Suddenly, there's a sit-down interview on Oprah's show. Suddenly, Taraji is walking back everything she said. Suddenly, Oprah is posting glowing captions about sisterhood and support right as the public pressure peaks.
Miss Oprah has been nothing less than a steady and solid beacon of light. One call, one conversation, and one decision-making Black woman to make me feel heard.
Nobody believed it, and they were right not to, because that's not reconciliation, that's damage control. That's the same reputation management playbook Epstein used when things got too hot. Rebrand, redirect, make yourself look like the solution right when people start figuring out you were the problem. Dave Chappelle saw it. He walked away from $50 million because he said he didn't trust what the industry wanted in return. At the time, people laughed at him.
I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happened.
They called him unstable, difficult. Even Oprah made light of his decision publicly, reinforcing the narrative that he'd thrown away success. But now, years later, people are looking back at that moment with completely different eyes. Because when someone refuses the money, refuses the silence, refuses the control, they aren't just saying no to a deal. They're stepping outside the system entirely. And the people who run that system do not like that. Here's where the story widens. Because Oprah's name doesn't appear once or twice next to controversy. It appears repeatedly. And each time, it's next to men who were later exposed as predators operating at the highest levels of power. Harvey Weinstein. For decades, he was treated like royalty inside the industry. Oprah spoke glowingly about him, promoted him, attended his events. She was, by all appearances, a friend and ally. Then the walls came down.
When you have been part of the problem for decades, but suddenly they all think you are the solution.
Seal went further.
I forgot, that's right. You'd heard the rumors, but you had no idea he was actually serially young starry-eyed actresses. My bad.
Seal had been in the industry since the early 90s. He knew the rooms, he knew what was said behind closed doors, and what he was pointing at directly and publicly was the idea that Oprah couldn't have not known. That nobody at that level could have not known. Then there's R. Kelly. Then there's Diddy. Each one at different points sat comfortably inside Hollywood's inner circle. Each one eventually became the center of devastating headlines. And in each case, Oprah's proximity to these figures before the exposure raises the same uncomfortable question. How does someone this connected, this powerful, this aware, miss this many red flags, unless they weren't missed at all? Now enter Jeffrey Epstein. And suddenly the question isn't about coincidence anymore. Because Epstein's entire operation was built on exactly the kind of leverage and reputation management that we've been watching play out in Oprah's relationships with Monique, Taraji, and 50 Cent. Epstein needed trusted faces. He needed people whose credibility could make him look clean. And Oprah, a woman with a television network, a humanitarian brand, and the trust of millions, would have been exactly the kind of human shield Epstein was looking for.
What he needed next wasn't another donation. It was a human shield, someone the public already trusted, someone whose reputation could speak louder than his crimes.
That's not speculation. That's documented behavior. That's what Epstein did with MIT, with Harvard, with billionaires, with royalty. He collected credibility the way other people collect assets. And now we have an email, a documented, verified email, where Epstein is literally scripting what gets said on Oprah's platform. 50 Cent and Monique aren't just calling out a cheap boss. They're pointing at a system where Black artists are underpaid, silenced, and threatened into compliance. A system where powerful women promote predators. A system that protected Jeffrey Epstein for decades while destroying the careers of anyone who refused to play along. And then Epstein died, officially ruled a suicide. But between the malfunctioning cameras, the guards who fell asleep at exactly the right moment, the broken neck bones inconsistent with hanging, and the fact that just days before his death, his lawyers were in discussions with federal prosecutors about the possibility of cooperation.
According to an FBI record, Epstein was possibly about to cooperate with the feds right before he died. That on July 29, 2019, his lawyers and the federal prosecutors in this case, in very general terms, discussed the possibility of a resolution of the case and the possibility of the defendant's cooperation.
He was going to name names. He had the information. He had the leverage. And then he was gone. And if Epstein was naming names, even preliminary names, even general categories, that would mean some of the most powerful people on earth had a direct incentive for him to never testify. Not just politicians, not just billionaires, anyone who had been part of his network, anyone whose image he had helped maintain, anyone who had appeared on his radar as a potential asset. The documents that have since been released don't give us everything, but they give us enough to see the architecture, enough to understand that Epstein didn't work alone. He worked through people, through intermediaries, through trusted figures who either didn't ask questions or asked the questions and stayed quiet anyway. And 50 Cent and Monique, two people who were burned by exactly this kind of machine, are now publicly asking, what did Oprah know and when did she know it? Here's where we land. Nobody in this video has been convicted of a crime they haven't already been convicted of. Oprah has not been charged with anything. There is no public document that proves she knowingly aided Jeffrey Epstein. What there is a pattern. A documented pattern of proximity to predators, a documented pattern of silencing and punishing black artists who refused to comply, and a documented email that placed Epstein's words inside her platform. And now the two most vocal critics of her career, people who have nothing left to lose because she already took everything she could from them, are putting those pieces together in public.
I'm sure Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry would not want to continue to allow their influence to damage Monique's career. This has gone on for way too long, so now would be a great time to apologize, because I'm going to put her back on.
That was 50 Cent standing up for Monique when every single person in the industry went silent. And now, with Taraji's situation pulling back the curtain again, he's doing it again, louder. Because the through line between what happened to Monique, what happened to Taraji, what happened to 50 Cent, and what the Epstein files are slowly revealing is the same through line: power, silence, control, and the punishment of anyone who refuses to comply. Dave Chappelle's baboon analogy hits different now.
They put a lump of salt in a hole, and they wait for the baboon. The baboon comes, sticks his hand in the hole, grabs the salt makes his hand bigger, and he's trapped. He can't get his hand out. Now, if he's smart, all he does is let go of the salt.
Monique let go of the salt. 50 Cent let go of the salt. And they both paid for it. But now, the cage is open. And they're not running to water. They're running straight back to tell everyone else where the trap is buried. The files aren't done being released. The names aren't done surfacing. And the people who've been watching Oprah build her empire on the backs of underpaid, silenced, and blackballed black artists are starting to ask a question that once would have seemed impossible. Was she just complicit in Hollywood's culture of silence? Or was she part of the infrastructure that kept the most dangerous man in modern history protected? We don't have all the answers yet, but we have the pattern. We have the email, we have the names, and we have two people, Monique and 50 Cent, who were pushed out, punished, and written off, standing back up and saying, "We told you so." The question is whether the rest of the world is finally ready to listen. Drop your thoughts in the comments. You already know what questions need to be asked. And if this video opened your eyes, share it, because the only thing more powerful than a secret is the truth.